Welcome to another episode of Aftermath. Once again, I have questions, and just like a good soothsayer, Scott Brown has all of my answers that I desperately need. What are my questions? Well, rich people have it, poor people don't have it. Compounding interest. How do we get it? I hear that's the secret sauce with everybody getting more and more commas these days. I want to learn how to compound. Once again, I get to ask Scott a point-blank, pretty simpleton question. I need to know what an ESOP is, because I have no idea any acronyms, especially ESOP. I have to find out. What are some of the dumbest investment trends that we've seen just blow up? What are the ones that Scott has been blown away? Was it Beanie Babies? It had to have been Beanie Babies, right? That people invested in that. And lastly, I got to ask Scott, why did he name his book with the title that he did, being a financial advisor? Much, much more right now happening. Sit down. We're about to talk money. Let's get straight to it. I always hear rich people do this. Poor people don't do it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't do it because the only compounding right now that I have is verbs. Compound verbs and words. How do people get to that echelon that I always hear about compound interest?
You know, compound interest is, somebody once said famously, it's the eighth wonder of the world.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's you only know seven of the wonders. So I'm about to give you the eighth.
It's still just a compound word.
Yes. So compound, yes. So the concept of compound interest, I mean, it's not overly complex, and it's not just for rich people. It's the idea, you know, if you say to somebody, you put in $100 somewhere and you're going to earn 7%. You're going to earn $7 a year. In their minds, they think every year they earn $7 for 10 years. So they make $70. And that's how most people think of interest. Like, well, if I give them 100, they're going to give me 7. If I do that for 10 years, my 100 is going to turn into 170. But that's not what happens.
Now, you said that's what most people think about interest. Is that the right way of thinking about interest?
It is not. This is where compounding becomes the eighth wonder of the world. If you give me $100 and I give you 7%, it's going to be worth about $200 at the end. And you say, well, how's that possible? I'm only making $7 a year. And here's how. You made $7 on your $100. The next year, you made 7% not on $100, but on $107. And then the next year, you didn't make 7% on $100. You made 7% on $115. And then the next year, you didn't make 7% on $100. You made it on $125. So the compounding effect, I'm sure nobody listening to this is going, yeah, that makes perfect sense. What's he telling us? Something we already know. But that is not how I find people think about it when I talk to them. Because I'll say something like, well, you know, at 7%, money doubles every 10 years. Rule of 72 loosely. And they're like, how's that possible? And then I say, well, I'd say what I just said to you. And they're like, their first reaction is, yeah, I knew that. I can see it in their eyes that they did not know that. So I know that's a simple concept, and half the people are going, yeah, move on, this isn't that interesting. But really, when you're talking to your children, when you're talking to somebody who maybe is seeking advice on compound interest, as you just did, why does it work the way it does? That's why, you know, if you earn 10% a year, your money's going to double every 6.5, 7 years, right? That's a big difference. So every point you earn makes that compounding more and more and more prevalent, more and more effectual, I guess, for lack of a better word. So understanding that, because that's why I think it's to people when they think of a 401k, for example, they think, what is $100 a month going to do? Right? That's $1,200.
It's not about $100 a month right now. It's about $100 a month this month for 8 years. That $100 suddenly just got hit with some fun stock market financial photosynthesization.
Yes.
That $100 is no longer $100.
Yeah, because you're at the end of the year, you got $1,200. If you earn 7 or 8% or whatever, maybe you have $1,210. But then the next year, you're going to throw another $1,200 on top. The compounding is going to continue with the additional money that's going in. So it's easy to, if you can think of it in those terms, you can realize, oh, $100 really isn't $100. Well, how does somebody start at age 25 and retire at 60 with $1 million? And that's how they didn't. It's compounding interest that did that. Compounding return, even if it's not interest, even if it's a stock grew by 10% a year and it didn't pay any interest, but every year the additional first 10% turned 100 into 110, 110 into 123, 123 into 145, and so on and so forth.
Here's another question about just compound interest. And is this how wealthy people do it? From the outside looking in, as someone who's not like someone who's destroying it when it comes to bank accounts, he's not doing bad. Of course, I'm talking about myself, but from afar, it looks like wealthy people make a couple $100 or enough money off of their money that just makes their life on an easier trajectory. And the paradox of it is that they couldn't spend that money to get to that point. That's what I see from afar from wealthy people, is that their money does all the heavy lifting for them.
Yeah, I mean, to use the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point reference, there's a tipping point for people of wealth, right? If they start out like the rest of us with not much means, they grow their money over time, compounding gets them to a point, let's say they're 50, 55 years old, suddenly, they've accumulated $1 million or $2 million. And then when they make 10%, they don't make $100. They make $200,000. So you got $1,000 in your account that you earned 7% on. You made $70. That isn't really going to change your life, right? They made $200,000. They could literally live on $200,000 a year for the rest of their life, assuming the rate of return were to continue, and never touch the capital.
Oh man, is that my dream?
Yeah, and
there it is. That's my goal.
It's every client I have. I mean, and it's not, the amount is really not that material, right? Some of them have 300,000, some of them have 30 million. The number, they reach a tipping point in their lives.
Malcolm Gladwell.
I probably owe him $1 or something.
I was about to say it. Yeah, I was.
I'll pay. He's that hairdo he has probably costs a lot. So I would suggest that for everybody that tipping point's different. So you shouldn't get caught up in it's $1 million, it's $3 million, it's $500,000, it's $200,000. What is your tipping point? So if you're compounding along the way and you say, look, I make $73,000 a year and I'm going to get $28,000 from Social Security. So my delta is whatever, $45,000 give or take. How do I get that $45,000? Well, if I had $800,000 in an account and I earned 5%, I'll make $40,000 a year on my capital without theoretically, in my example, touching the principal, right? That might not always be true, but could be largely true. So I've met my obligation to myself, my own personal tipping point, and the compounding from this point forward is not compounding anymore. All it's now is just providing me income. It was compounding. That $200,000 a year that multimillionaire is making was getting put back in. So now he makes 10% on his $2 million. He made $200,000. Now he's got 2.2, and next year he's got 2.5, and the next year he's got 2.9. That's how that stuff, the rich get richer, as they say.
Yeah.
And if you allow that to happen long enough, and now he's got or she's got $3 million, now that money, that hypothetical 10%, that $300,000 a year is no longer compounding. I've stopped. I've put up the stop sign. We're stopping, and now that $300,000's coming to me so that I can go to Europe or I can go on a cruise.
No biggie.
But that's what everybody wants. I mean, I don't know if the term is independently wealthy or what people call that. I'm sure there are many names for it, but that's really what it is. It's the tipping point where the compounding has done its job. And the easiest way for compounding to do its job is for you to save to the point where it can do its job.
Everyone has this dream, and it's funny that it's a dream because it's always when they're asleep. Because they always, how many people, especially of a certain generation, not going to say who, boomers, they all had the same. I almost like they read it out of the boomer handbook of like,
It's in the handbook.
I want to make money when I sleep.
Yes.
And it's ironic that that's their dream.
Well, I mean, and many of them have realized it. Many of them have not. We all grew up with, Michael Douglas, Greed is Good.
Yeah.
That's really, I mean, I saw that movie and I thought, well, that sounds good to me.
I saw Wolf of Wall Street and I was like, how fun were Quaaludes? No.
Yes.
I didn't learn anything financial. I just ran away
you
from
learn
it.
how to do cocaine. Yes.
I learned how to not go downstairs correctly.
Yes. There's a lot of lessons and none of them are good. But I again, compounding is not that. I think I tell a similar story in most 401k conversations I have, which is, if you have $1,000 and you're just getting started, it's not that impactful to earn 10%. You say, I want to earn 10%. That's a good rate. It is a good rate of return.
Here's $100.
Here's $100. It will not change your life. But if you save to the point where you have 100,000, now you made 10 grand. Like now you opened your statement and your 100 grand's 110. There is a point in every 401k participant's life, whether they get there or they don't. But when they get there, they never look back. Because I think what happens when you're saving for, and I'm using 401ks just because it's an easy example, but this would be true in any savings, is okay, I'll put $100 a month in. Okay, I'll put 200 in. It's really not doing it. See, I'm raising kids. I'm doing my thing. I got to go to the movies. I got to take the kid out, pick the kid up out of daycare. I got to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. All these things are going on in your life, and you keep saving. You keep not being impressed.
Yeah.
You keep saying this is a total ripoff. This is never going to work out. I'm never going to get there. And then one day your kid leaves for college, and you're like, all right, I guess I should look at the 401k. And now you've got 300 grand, 400 grand in the 401k, and you made 10%. You made $40,000, and you're like, wait, what? Very different. You made the same 10% that you made at 1,000.
I've heard it so many times, and by all means, this is a little different, but it's right on the money at the same time. The first million is the hardest, right? The first,
so true.
And also, the first 1,000 is the hardest. The first 5,000 is the hardest. There's no first numerical amount of money that is the easiest.
No, I mean,
there's the first 100,000. Yeah, that's the hardest $100,000 you're ever going to make.
Yes. And I think there's a tipping point mentally or emotionally where, again, if you're in your 20s or your 30s and you got $27,000 and you're like, oh, that's good money, but I don't know if I'm into this thing. Is this really going to work out? And then you get to your 40s, your 45, your 47, whatever you are. There comes a point in every participant's mind where they go all in. Because it's now, because if you have $27,000 in a 401k and the radiator goes out on your car, or the roof blows off your house, or you need a new AC, you're kind of like, 27,000 isn't. I'm taking the 10 grand out, and I'm going to buy the air conditioner or whatever. Yeah. You haven't really cleared that mental hurdle yet and appreciating what you've done. But when people get to a certain number, and I don't know what it is, I'm going to say it's 50, 70, 80, probably depends on the person, but it's definitely around 50, I would guess. That's off the table because now they get it. They're like, I got this far. This is a real number. This is significant in my life. I'm not going to let everyday affairs get in the way of that anymore. Whereas before, the everyday affairs dominated the conversation over the 27,000 or the 15,000. Now the 50,000 has become, sacred. I'm not, because I know how it works. And now I know I can do this. And I know 50 can be 100 and 100 can be a million and so on and so forth. So there's some emotional triggers in people's brains. It's the same in 401ks. I've always been fascinated with 401k employers who have 401ks and their attitudes towards those 401ks. And you can tell if an employer has a crappy attitude about 401ks, it'll be reflected in the participation in the account balances of their employees, which is sad, right? If they're like, I just do it because I have to, and they don't want to do education, they don't want to do meetings, they don't want to have these kinds of conversations, which I've had for 40 years, you'll see the average balance is lower and you'll see participation down. But there's a tipping point in the community in that employee group where if 10% of the employees are in the 401k, There's no peer pressure. There's no, oh, Ross is doing it, or Ed's doing it, or Nick's doing it, because only Scott's doing it. But if suddenly we go into the room and me, you, and Ed are doing it, Nick's like, well, wait a minute. What, these three guys are doing it, and I'm being left out.
I'll have a Sam Adams.
I will also have a Sam Adams. And so I think there's a tipping point in people's minds. There's a tipping point. This goes back to the friend group, right? You're an average of your top 5 friends. Mm-hmm. If 4 of your friends aren't in 401ks and think they're stupid, you're probably going to not be in your 401k and think it's stupid.
Silly being creatures of our own surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
We must be on top of that.
Yes. We must be individuals. I know it's hard.
Well, moving on to our next question. And this is the moment when I just point blank, straight up ask you a dumb question.
Love it.
Because I have no shame in my game.
Can I give you a dumb answer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What is an ESOP? Am I even saying the acronym right? Should I call it an ESOP? Mm. Is it SOP? What is it Spanish?
It could be.
What is an ESOP?
ESOP. I think it's French.
Yeah.
I think it's whatever you want it to be because it's an acronym. You can say it however you want. So that stands for Employee Stock Ownership Program.
Dude, just took a nap halfway through that.
You're welcome. So let me dress that up a little bit. So essentially, ESOPs are a way for an employer or a founder, like say me. Say I wanted to sell my company and I wanted to sell it to my employees. So I have key employees. Ed's a key employee. Nick's a key employee. And I'm like, look, I need to get out. I'm old. I want to retire. I want to do my enjoyment stuff. And I need money to do that. So I'm going to sell it to you guys because you've been good employees. You've been loyal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, a famous one is Publix. Publix has an amazing ESOP program. Publix is an employee-owned company. The employees own it. So they're given stock.
They're like the Packers.
They are like the Packers. No, Packers are publicly traded. Publix is private.
Oh, God. Close. Not close.
But with the ESOP, you're given stock based on your tenure, how long you've been there, and what you make. So as you can imagine, the higher paid people get more of the stock because they're in the management position and so on and so forth. But if you use Publix as an example, which is a very good one, I don't care if you're a meat cutter, a bagger, a stock person, a cashier, or a manager, or a regional person. If you are in their ESOP program or have been at least for the last 30 or 40 years, you have a lot of money. And they didn't buy it. It was just given to them as a reward for their tenure and for their dedication to the firm, which in the case of Publix, it's brilliant. It works very, very well.
It's good to know that at the very least, their employees can afford Publix groceries.
That's right.
Got him, dude. I'm just saying, man, BOGO, I walk out being like, I got a deal. Why am I in debt?
Yeah. Why did I have to fill out finance forms for this?
Man, I don't even like pizza goldfish. Why did I buy so many pizza goldfish? And then the BOGO gets me every time. Now, that is different than a stock purchase from your company.
Yeah.
Do you notice how my questions have like 4 question marks in them?
I see that. They just keep unfolding.
Yeah. By the end, this is my goal. The end of this program, they're all filled with confidence. All my questions are filled with one question mark, not
one question mark.
Not just a questioning
Something tells me you'll come up with more. But I think that, or I don't think, I know that a stock purchase program is different in so much that you're actually spending money to do it. So used to be in many companies, and there still is the case in some, is employees have the opportunity to buy stock in their company at a discount. So you might say XYZ company I've been working for, they say I can buy their stock that trades at $10 for $8.50, right? And so I'm going to buy out of my pocket or my pay, I'm going to buy the stock that's already really worth 15% more in my example than I paid for it, which you would say, well, that's pretty cool. Why wouldn't you just turn around and sell it and pocket the gain? And the answer is you typically can't. There's a holding period. Usually it's 3, 5, years, something like that you have to hold it before you can sell that stock, right?
Okay.
But it's a reward to you. It's sold out of their inventory or treasury stock, as it's called.
It's usually sold right at like a reduced price.
Yeah. So in my example, if you paid $8.50 for a $10 stock, you immediately got a gain out of the deal the second you bought it, right? Now, of course, the rub would be if it dropped to $7, you wouldn't feel so great about it anymore. But then the next buy you would have would be at $6 or something. So it's a benefit. It's an employee benefit as long as the stock does okay, right? So that's where we run into problems with people. People have this affinity for their own stock, and a lot of times people will come into my office and if they're worth, I'll just use $1 million because it's a round number, they're worth $1 million, but 700 is in the company stock that they work for. Yeah, and a lot of times I'm like, I get it, you've done well, and I get that's where you work, and I get that makes you comfortable. That's a bit of a bias on their part, right? I work there, therefore it's a good place to have money. But usually we will try to get them to at least come down in their allocations, because if something bad happens, and I can give you an example, is in the late 90s, I did a lot of public speaking to AT&T, Lucent, Bell South, CWA, communication workers throughout the state.
Some of those companies aren't as known anymore.
Then you see the point coming. And I had a client or two, one in particular who, if you remember tech stocks, which Lucent was counted among back in the day, back in 99, had gone up 70% in like 2 years in a row. So these employees who were close to retirement had seen their $100,000 turn into $1 million and were convinced that they were then going to see $2 million the next year. And I begged this guy, because he was literally 6 months from retirement.
What?
You see what's coming here. I said, listen, I think you really ought to back out of some of this. You know, you're way ahead. You've done fantastic. You've crossed the finish line. Stop running. He had so much FOMO, which wasn't a thing then, right? He's like, no, it's going to go from $1 million to $2 million, and then I'm going to be able to do all these awesome things in retirement. And I said, yeah, but the utility of that compared to losing it all is not worth it. And he could not buy into that concept. And within 3 months, his nearly $1 million, I don't think it was quite $1 million, turned into $70,000 in 3 months. And it reminded me that will never leave my mind. I will never forget that experience. So when somebody says, well, yeah, but it's a great company and it's going to do awesome and you have 90% of your money in it, I am going to try every way I can imaginable to convince them, especially near retirement, you shouldn't be doing that.
You're going to tell that story in Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese.
I am.
We'll get it translated, transcribed, whatever needs to happen for people to understand to never put all of your eggs in any golden basket.
Well, and you also shouldn't ignore the good fortune you've had. Right? Stocks don't grow at 70% a year. I don't care what they are.
There are so many lessons to be learned out of that one.
Not for a long period anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's silly to think that NVIDIA is going to grow a compound at 40 or 50% a year for the next 10 years. That's ridiculous. It might for the next few years. It might grow to 100% a year for all I know. But it is ludicrous to think if you work at NVIDIA today, just making up an example, and you think, well, that thing's doubled 3 times in the last 5 years, and that's going to continue at that pace. That is not how capitalism works. It's not how our markets work. Eventually, competitors will figure out a competitive advantage over them, or at least keep up with them, bring a lower cost product, bring a better product, whatever. Employees will defect to another company. Somebody at the top of the food chain will start their own company.
And going back just to really answer the question of what an ESOP is, that was not an example of an ESOP.
It was not.
That was not, because he opted in. He was purchasing that through essentially his paycheck. 2
ways. He was buying it through a discounted stock purchase program and in his 401k.
Oh,
he had loaded the boat in his 401k, and again,
now the difference is that an ESOP would have been if that company was just giving him that stock.
Correct.
And not having him buy it.
Right. And he might not have had an option to get out till he retired, and that's fine. You don't have a choice there.
But yeah, that's not a bad thing at all. It's free stock. Not free, you're working there, but...
Yeah, but more or less it's a company benefit, whereas in the stock purchase program, and especially the 401k, the stock purchase program, I get, you're buying it at a discount. But he could have offloaded some of that stock. And the one I struggled with was the 401k, because that was about half of it was in the 401k. He had other options in the 401k. I didn't want him to sell it all.
You know, I think it's worth noting to our listeners and also to you as we become better friends, this is a different set of eyes you've given me talking about this example of a stock purchase employee program going that south. It seems like you won't forget that one.
No, and again, that part I could have almost lived with, but the 401k part was the part I really struggled with, because he had done so well, and that was the problem. He had hindsight bias. He knew he had done well, and he confused his good fortune in markets that were probably a little overpriced with brilliance. Never confuse a bull market with brilliance, as Warren Buffett said, and he did. He thought, I've done this. I've turned my $50,000 investment into $500,000. I've done that. Right?
But I question, he hasn't done it yet.
Correct.
At least to me, my definition of selling the stock and making it into USD from stock into cash, that's doing it. That's when it's finalized and optimal, right? It's done.
Sometimes you got to take yes for an answer, right? Because he knew at that point when we did the retirement planning, he could retire with the amount of money he had. He knew that. He'd crossed the finish line. But he thought, I'm going to run another mile even though my shoes are wearing thin. And I could not convince him to even diversify a little bit. Had he taken half that money and put it in a stable value product or a bond fund or a money market for that matter, he could have still retired within a year or two. What turned out happening is he had to continue to work for another decade.
Well, this would be a great time to ask you my last and final question for today's episode.
Right on.
You named your book as a financial advisor, I've Never Made Anyone Rich by Scott Brown. That's
I did
the
name it that.
of your book.
Yes.
Now, call me crazy.
You are.
You're crazy. Why would you name your book that? That doesn't seem like, granted, it's grabbed my attention here, but it seems like we're going the wrong direction in the title of the book, but maybe I'm missing something and you can help me out. Why did you name your book, I've Never Made Anyone Rich?
If I'm being honest, out of frustration. You know, you can go right now to any bookstore, assuming those still exist in your neighborhood.
Well, they're on their way out, but they're there.
You can go to any bookstore and go to the business section or the self-help section or the financial section, and there'll be no shortage of books claiming to have the ability, if you read the book, you'll be rich overnight, or you'll be rich quickly, or here are the secrets, or 3 ways to do this, or 5 ways to do that. And the problem with those books, and some of them have very good insights in them, but the reality is the titles are misleading. And how they mislead people is that leads them to believe that those people, therefore other people, financial advisors, their job is to make you rich. And I can tell you, I've been doing this I've begun my 39th year, and I know 24 financial advisors in this town, many of which are immensely successful, and none of us have ever made anyone rich.
What have you made people then?
Competent at managing their wealth. If you're rich, if you come into my office and you have $2 million or $200,000, I didn't do that. You did that, right? There's no financial advisor saying, bring me $0.
That's the way I like it.
I can't wait to manage your $0 because I won't get paid anything, right? They want you to go make your $2 million or your $4 million and bring it to them because now they're going to get paid, right? And I'm not opposed to people getting paid. It's how I make a living, but it's not making people rich. If you sold a plumbing company after 35 years of being up to your elbows in a toilet every day, 15, 16 hours a day, I didn't do that. You did that. If you save diligently in your 401k where you work, and you, even when you kind of needed the money or something bad happened at the house, and you said, no, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to keep putting this $500 a month away no matter what. And now you have $1 million in your 401k. I didn't do that. You did that. My job is, once you accumulate that wealth, and you're 50 and you're now ready to kind of scale back or think about retirement and do the plan. Because now I have it. I did this. What are the tax implications? Where should I draw my income from? How do I interact with an estate attorney? What about my accountant? Who deals with my accountant? Should I get dividends? Should I focus on growth? Do annuities make any sense? Should I insure myself somehow? What about long-term care? And I could do this all day long, but I don't have enough fingers.
Yeah.
Right?
So many acronyms.
That is what we do. We help you, because that's time consuming, right? They say the average person should spend 15 to 20 hours a year on their finances.
And that's not just staring at bank accounts and being like,
that's what most people do.
Dude, why did that bar? Oh yeah, I just tipped that heavy. Whoops.
Yeah, it's just looking at their phone going, oh, that was a sucky day, or that was a good day, or whatever. And that's our job, is to help people maintain their wealth in a practical, prudent, and responsible fashion, not to make them rich. You don't come in to see an advisor and say, I have $100,000. I need you to buy me 2 stocks and make it $1 million by the end of the year. Because if you do, it's likely to be $50,000 at the end of the year. There's no mechanism for that. Does it happen? Rarely, yes. That's why it gets a lot of press. It's so rare that when somebody buys a stock, they make a ton of money.
Do you at all chase that with any percentage of it? I mean, the rarity is still like, no one's denying that the rarity exists. That's why it's rare.
Right.
It does happen.
That's why it gets attention.
And that's why it gets attention. And
right.
It's you know who always never makes the headlines? The guy who finished 3rd on the lotto.
Yeah.
You know, like,
right. Assume you're not going to be. A person does win the lottery every week, or however often it happens. I have no idea. Assume that's not you.
It's
right?
okay to not be the lotto winner.
You're not going to be, statistically.
Let's just save some time. You're not the lotto winner.
Right. And you're not a good gambler. You're not good at poker. You're not good at blackjack. Just get over it.
It's going to happen. If you look at it as entertainment, I won't argue that. But you cannot look at it like, well, my kid's going to go to college. It's either community or UCF, depending on what the Jets do this Sunday.
Oh, don't even get. I mean, think about what we're doing to our young people right now with the sports apps, the betting apps. I won't say their names, but I hope they all go out of business, to be honest with you, because I think it's rotten and evil. 70% of our young men between the ages of 15 or 16 and 23 have a gambling app on their phone. And what we're teaching them is how you build wealth is to, as you said, gamble on the point spread for the Jets or the pitch count in the World Series. And imagine I get that person at 30, and they've been doing this for 12 or 15 years. That young man or that young woman, and sadly it's mostly young men, walks into my office and he's like, well, what are you going to do for me? And I'm like, well, Junior, if you save $100 a month and you earn 7.3%, you have a 93.7% chance of success at age 68. And he's going to run out of my office because all of his dopamine comes from that phone. It comes from that betting. And every single time, talk about dumb things people repeat, every bet is going to be the bet. Now, first of all, they're usually betting $20 or $30 or $50. So even if they get a 10Xer somehow, and I don't even know how that would work in gambling, but I mean, you have to look no further than our professional athletes recently getting themselves into hot water over gambling. We have taught our young people, especially our young men, maybe it's just that they're more susceptible to it, that this is how you do it, and it is 100% not how you do it.
And you're right. I'm not going to bring up the apps either, but I will say that gambling can sometimes put people at a rock bottom, a hard rock bottom. A hard rock bottom.
20% more likely to commit suicide. People with gambling problems.
There's a reason why there's like a small little disclaimer on all those commercials.
That's a joke too. That's ridiculous. That should be in large print, slowly read, and the other part where you get $10 more of betting for the first dollar you put in should be in the small print.
And then I bet you if those, if gambling wrote a book, I bet you I know the title of their book.
I never made anybody rich.
No, their title is "I've Made People Rich."
Yes, they would.
I've made people rich, and with their witch fingers shooting out on the title of the book. Come hither, come here. Yes.
Yeah, we're on a tangent here, but it's one that it's a hot button for me because I just see it so much and I hear about it. And it angers me, if I'm being totally honest. And it angers me at our legislators, our quote unquote leaders, have fallen for the easy dollar raise because you can tax it and nobody really complains. It's, if they wake up tomorrow and say we have a huge deficit and everybody has to pay 2% more on their income taxes, they will all be voted out of office. But if they say, let's legalize gambling, what could that hurt? It's the same effect because people are losing money, way more money than they would have lost on the 2% tax increase. And we're also preying on our worst human instincts for the most vulnerable people because, like the lottery, we know the socioeconomics of lottery players is considerably lower of people who don't play.
It is a tangent, but you kind of just blew my mind. So you're saying maybe some leaders went ahead and said like, hey, a tax increase would work and kind of needed to get these things done, but we're going to lose our jobs if we just say,
100%.
And then so how about, wait a second, let's make it into a different package. Let's make sports gambling legal, and then we'll tax the losses and winnings of that, which will actually, look at this, guys, ran the numbers, more than 2%.
Yeah.
We're going to make more money
this way. Oh, and
keep our jobs.
And we're going to destroy people's lives in the process. I mean, I find it hilarious that nobody's crying out about this. All the other things they cry about or worry about or think about, and I realize I'm on a tangent now, but it bothers me a great deal to see young men, and I say young men because it's disproportionately young men destroying not only their current lives, but probably their future lives.
And once again, that's a different set of eyes that I got to see you again on this episode. Yeah. This has been a very special episode. And to be honest,
pissed off.
And to be honest with you, you are pissed off, but you're pissed off about the right things. And I don't want to end this conversation with a commercial, but a friendly reminder, you are a financial advisor that is pissed off about young men being involved in sports gambling. That just shows me a little bit more of your cards that you are not just a good financial advisor, but also a good person.
I try.
Mission accomplished.
Well, thank you.
And that is Aftermath. Ripped another episode. I hope you guys learned some more about financial conversations, and also finally what an ESOP is. So let me shake your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
ESOP.
I will conquer these acronyms if it's the last thing I do. That's Aftermath. That's Scott Brown. My name is Rauce Padgett. Thanks for listening. Peace.